Today we're going to talk about the early humans. So this is our first set of notes, and we're basically talking starting at the beginning of time, which is kind of cool. One of the things I want you to know as we go through these notes is just make sure you're filling in the blanks as we go. Anything that's red is going to be highlighted, so you'll want to use a highlighter tool on the top of the Google Docs. Okay, so here we go. All right, so we're going to start with prehistory. So this is basically the time period before there's any written records. So one of the ways that historians figure out what happened in the past is they look at written records. So this is before writing was invented. So basically what we need to do is we need to look at the things that the people left behind. So different artifacts, biological information, and then the archaeologists and the anthropologists use those things to basically create theories. Now, these are really just guesses. We're guessing as best as we can as to what happened because obviously, since nobody was actually there, it is difficult to determine what actually happened. Okay, so archaeology studies the structure of past societies by analyzing the artifacts. So artifacts are anything that are left behind. Okay, so any items, so like tools, household items, weapons, buildings, artworks, religious figures, anything that people have left behind. And then anthropologists, what they do is they use human remains or fossils to study the culture. So they're interested in things like what did they eat, what kind of clothing did they wear, what like art did they create and things like that. They'll even look at like the tools and the weapons, and they'll determine if they were more of like a hunting society or if they were more militaristic or whatever. So they'll kind of look at the different things that are available to them and try to determine their culture. Okay, so they also use scientific methods to create their theories. So one of the most important scientific tasks is dating the artifacts and fossils because you need to know how old it is to determine when it was used. Okay, so one of the ways is radiocarbon dating, which we'll talk about on the next slide. They can accurately determine how old something is up to 50,000 years. Thermoluminescence what it does is it looks at the radiation coming off of it. The less radiation, usually, the older it is. Okay, because it's kind of worn out. So you look over here. This is older than this. So that measures accurately up to 200,000 years ago. And then they can also use DNA and blood molecule samples to give us some more information about those societies. Okay, so radiocarbon dating, this is the process here. So basically what they do is they get a bone and then they grind it up. Okay, and then they add a treatment to it and freeze dry it. Okay, and then they add more treatments to it in regards with benzene. Okay, so they're looking for benzene in this case, and then they look at what does benzene look like. Okay, then they add something to it, and then they put all this through a computer, and then they analyze the formation of the numbers of decays per minute. And so what the computer does is it tells you how old it is based on what that sample is. Okay. Okay. So early stages of development. So the earliest humans or human-like beings are Australopithecus, which means southern apes. They were discovered by Donald Johanson, and it's believed that they lived in Africa, excuse me, about 3 to 4 million years ago. Okay, so this is Australopithecus here. They were the first hominids. So hominids are any creature that walks upright. So we are hominids. And they also made stone tools. Okay, so they're the first ones to do that. Homo erectus is another important stage of human development. This is Homo erectus here. So they date back about 1.5 million years ago, and they used larger and more varied tools. So we could see, based on that, we can determine that the brain is developing and getting more complex. And so Homo erectus first moved into parts of Europe and Asia from Africa. So what we're seeing is a migration pattern from Africa into other areas. And basically, Homo erectus was able to move into colder areas because they actually discovered fire. Okay, so they were the first beings to actually make fire on purpose, deliberately. Okay, so they were able to use that and harness that. Okay, so Homo sapiens, we're almost to where we are. So Homo sapiens, it means wise human being. They emerged about 250,000 years ago. Now, there's two subgroups within this. You have the Neanderthals and then the Homo sapiens sapiens, which is what we are. Okay, so the Neanderthals lived in the Neander region, which is in Germany, and they're going to die out. Okay, so they had a lot of conflict with the Homo sapiens sapiens. So if you look here, this is the Homo sapiens sapiens. This is us. This is the Neanderthal. Okay, so you can see a pretty big difference in skull type and things like that. The Homo sapiens sapiens was the first group that looked like us, and they're going to appear in Africa anywhere from 150 to 200,000 years ago. And like I said today, we are all part of this subgroup of Homo sapiens sapiens. Okay. A basic distinguishing feature of human beings is making and using tools. So early on, they were made of stone. This is known as the Stone Age or the Paleolithic Age. So Paleolithic means Old Stone Age, and it's the earliest period of human history. So this has a very big span. It's the largest in regards to years span of human history. So this goes from 2.5 million years ago to 10,000 BC. Okay. So the Paleolithic people hunted game, they gathered nuts, berries, fruits, wild grains, and they developed better hunting tools. So they developed like spears, bows and arrows, harpoons, fish hooks, those kinds of things. Now they were nomadic, so they moved from place to place, and what they did is they moved based on vegetation cycles and animal migrations, and most often they lived in bands of about 20 to 30 people. So they lived together, but in very small groups. And usually those were people they were related to. Okay, so it was usually family groups. So Paleolithic life was organized around food. Okay, the whole goal was to find food. Okay, so the men hunted, the women gathered. So the women, for the most part, stayed close to camp because they were bearing and raising children. But when we look at their community, we believe that men and women were probably equal because both were responsible for getting food. So both men and women probably made major decisions. Okay, so that everybody was involved. Everybody had their role in basically keeping everybody fed, and therefore there was no major hierarchy of gender-wise of men over women. Okay, so technology. Technology refers to what we make to sustain ourselves and to control our environment. So everything we have is some form of technology. So stone tools were made by using a harder stone like a flint to create an edge on another stone. So the most common early tool we have found is a hand axe. Okay, so it was basically just the blade of the axe, and then later they're going to add the handle. These tools were used to kill and butcher animals. They were used to cut plants, dig up roots, cut branches to build shelter, etc. So they were very versatile. Early shelter was primarily in caves. They were able to make houses and huts, especially as they went from place to place, but they were very like temporary shelters. But what they would do is they would use the wood as the frames and then cover it with hides from animals that they have killed. Sometimes if they couldn't find wood, they would use animal bones for the frame as well. Okay. They used fire systematically as long as 500,000 years ago. So fire is very important to the survival of our species. So it was able to give warmth, fostered a sense of community. Basically, this is in the evenings they gathered around the fire and they told stories, and the fire often kept them safe from wild animals because the animals were scared of it, and it flushed out animals for hunting and cooked the food. Okay, so it's especially important for warmth during the ice ages. So the Earth started a very major ice age of around 100,000 years ago. So the last ice age ended about 8,000 years ago, or I'm sorry, about 10,000 years ago. Um, but the Paleolithic people created art. So one of the largest discoveries of this art is in Lascaux, France, and this is a picture of it here. And there's underground caves in France, and in it there's all kinds of images of animals and different things. And so many people think that these paintings were used in magical or religious rituals to bring about a successful hunt. Some people think, though, that it was just them just kind of creating art of what they see throughout the day, with the things that are important to them. It's hard to determine what the purpose was. But we're going to watch a real quick video, and this is going to wrap it up for us. This video basically goes through and shows you the Lascaux Caves. So you can't actually go into the caves. So what they did is they created a replica that you can go visit.
This cave has been painted in during the last part of the Upper Paleolithic, around 20,000 years ago. It's the most cold period of the last glaciation. It shows us how these people works and live in very difficult circumstances. These people from 20,000 years ago used natural pigments. We call that oxide, manganese oxide, and iron oxide. Iron oxides give the red and yellow paint, and manganese oxide gives the black one. For us archaeologists, Lascaux Cave, since its discovery in 1940, is something very important because of the stage of preservation.
All right, so there's that. So that's the Lascaux Caves there. Don't forget to do your processor. It's at the bottom of your notes there. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.